promoting riders to report issues with the tube system.
And it is what?
See it, say it, sort it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And
I don't think I've seen that enough. Also, the last time I was in London was
I think this
quite a while ago.
Yeah, I think this is a little more recent. And, I think it's so brilliant because sort it and sorted, like both of them fitted so well and it sounds very similar.
I think the last time I was there was 2015.
And in Los Angeles, the equivalent of see it, say it, sorted is see something, say something. And oh my God, every time you're in their public car, they have this speaker and every few minutes there is it says, see something, say something. And then they have that one line.
Oh my God, it's more like for probably like terror attack stuff.
No, it's
Is it? Because
like,
in India, it's like that.
Yeah, but there it's for disturbance to service or like if people are being problematic. Have you not seen the clips of people in the New York subway doing all sorts of crazy stuff?
They do.
Yeah, so it's probably
I also don't think that it's discouraged because people do like do a lot of like things in the South and people enjoy it. It's like entertainment for us also.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty sure it's just
like there's a guy who like takes interviews on What's Your Take. Okay. I don't know if you've seen him. So he like travels in the New York sub and he goes to a person and then they have like a very like quick chat about 5 minutes. But like, what's your take? And somebody's take is like, school shouldn't start at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And why, right? Or like his take is like, there should be no ice cream in the world, or like whatever.
God.
Like the takes, like everybody has that take.
Yeah.
Everybody has a take in life, and they sort of talk about it. He's like 100% agree or 100% disagree, and then they have like a quick chat about it. It's really nicely done.
Yeah,
it's very sweet. I feel like that's something that should be in the metro. They should not see it and say it and report it. But yeah, they should see it and say it. Like about it.
On that 8 a.m. school thing, some dude from Bombay made like a petition that he got 20,000 people to sign. And he's like, sleeplessness is an epidemic because school starts so early. And then, teenagers by design go to sleep really late and evolutionary. There's some looking right. So, so disrupting sleep is basically spoiling quality of life. School ko late karo. Waiting.
And schools are designed to make adult life easy. Like parent life easy. Because parents have to get up in the morning and go for work. Right. It's important that they have a place where their offsprings
can be parked.
Yeah, of course. 100%.
But then what about like this entire cohort of parents where like only one parent is working?
It doesn't matter, right?
Why?
Because schools are not designed for now where one parent is working and one, like even back in the day, the way it works is you need to find, so schools are designed so that kids can be a certain way into adults who are disciplined and good for work, right? And all those things you see like in an army person, like in military, in like factory workers, right? They all have early hours, they're all disciplined, they all work in a certain way. And so schools are designed to exactly promote that. You have assemblies, you have to have clean like shoes, and you have to stand height wise and work in like lines, and everything is designed in that way.
And
so the timings are also designed like that. No schools. Okay, so play schools don't start early in the morning. Play schools start when the kids have to be like 12 o'clock. Also, you can go and drop the kid at play school, and the play school will be there for like
6:30.
Whenever like it ends at like 6-7 p.m. you have to take your kid back home, right? But as soon as you get into first grade or second grade, like it always is 8 a.m. but the child has to get up actually at 6 a.m. because the bus comes at 7:30 so that the school assembly can start at 8, right? So it actually is fucked up because even that one parent is just exhausted from getting up super early to make lunch and make God knows what. It's a design flaw.
By the way, big cities bus come at 6:30, yeah, not 7:30. Just FYI.
I mean, there is a law even in India where you are supposed to go to your nearby school and not go to a richer school like 100 kilometers away. Now you live 100 kilometers away. That's a different thing.
I know, but that's a Delhi thing, like attending schools near you.
It is supposed to be like that. By design, your child should not have to sit in a bus for 2 hours to get to school and then sit in bus for 2 hours to get back home. You've missed half the life.
It's a capitalistic society. You can't help it. If there's no big school with the amenities that...
I mean, I went to a boarding school, so it's different. My parents, and before boarding school, I went to a school which did provide food.
Didn't.
Did. So my mother never had to make like tiffins.
Yeah, even I went to school, like one that had a canteen, and that actually had a meal plan attached to the school fee.
Yeah.
So like it had 3 meals and like 1 snack for every day that you...
3 meals? How long was your school?
It was
3 meals. You...
Wait, I think it was 2 meals. My bad.
Kids are eating more than they're studying. Science class, wait, banana time. No, we had like 2 meals, breakfast and lunch.
I think we had 2 meals and 2 snacks, or I don't remember properly. So maybe snacks for only for like the boarding school kids, or yeah. Something like that. So our school had...
To us, you had a boarding school. That's why this one...
I didn't know it was
also attached.
Deep on boarding, sure. But no, meal system was attached because...
It was to invest in a kitchen.
No, but scale, no. Like only 10% of the students were boarding.
Yeah.
So they had a separate...
It's an advantage,
it's a selling point to the parents that, hey, you don't have to send tiffin with your kids. We'll feed.
I think it is a big, because if 2 parents are working... Yeah. Mostly now it is that way, right? Both mother and father are working. Yeah. And so nobody has time to do that.
Yeah. And even if they aren't, like, it's a logistical, quite the op to make sure that food is prepped at 6:30 in the morning. And then it also limits the options you have, and the food is always cold. So
it stood there on that dish and then it jumped into the water. And they always stand there.
Oh my God, I missed the dish part, but I saw that bird like jumping into the water. But yeah. You know that Airtel dish is actually a relic of the previous decade. In case you haven't noticed, like it's such a pre-COVID thing. I haven't seen one of these bad boys in a very long time.
They're always also on top of a terrace that you don't often visit to.
But
tiny bird on that. Can you see?
Yeah.
It's fluttering around.
Yeah.
The 2 friends.
It's quite the place to sit and admire nature. Or what you have built in your backyard. It's very, very pretty. Seeing the plants grow. And also the birds and the fauna and the squid. So, I learned a few moons ago that the state of being in awe reduces activation in the self-referential areas of the network. And essentially, it takes you out of what is called the default mode network. This means the focus shifts from inside of you onto something else. And that reduces like a lot of issues you face mentally. So it reduces overthinking, it reduces tension, and
yes, you're not living in your head and you're like outside of your head. That makes sense. It's easier to go into like a whole world spiral.
Mm-hmm.
We are like constantly thinking or jumping around in your brain, or like linking one to many things, right?
Right.
And you're in awe of something. Also, like time slows down.
Yeah. If you're able to appreciate,
you have to observe it to be in awe of it. like it takes time to like see something, right? When you see a butterfly, like you're in awe of a butterfly, you can't be like 1 second you're in awe, right? You have to like you're watching it dance and it's moving, right? So you're following it, so you're not in your brain like you said. So you're like it slows down that time for you, and it's pretty cool. I think I do that a lot without intention.
Yeah. Oh my God, there's another bird.
Yeah.
Wow. If you were a bird watcher, you would be telling.
Pigeon. What?
Okay. If you were a bird watcher, you'd be telling me the species and everything right now.
I am not very well educated on bird species, but there's a very cool app called the Merlin app. It was designed by University of Columbia students, or the department that does ornithology. I think there's a study of birds. It's called something ortho or something. And if you download that app and you play it, like it records and then it tells you what all birds are singing around your area.
Oh, by the sound?
Yeah, it's very cool. And you can go everywhere and like record. It's called the sound landscape of a place. And so what they're doing is they're basically studying how the sound landscape is changing over time and how birds have stopped singing or how birds are singing in a different decibel now. And it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It also tells you what general birds do happen to be in your area that you can listen to. It's a super cool app. And there's a similar app. Okay, look, a blackbird on top. It's perched on top of a...
Oh my God. So tight.
There are like some 20 odd birds that come to this garden. Okay.
They're regulars.
Yeah. They're all like hummingbee category because they all have long beaks. All tiny birds. They all have long beaks. So they can like put their beaks inside a flower to like take nectar.
Which has been the coolest bird that has visited your...
The peacock.
Oh yeah?
Peacock's pretty cool. I mean, I've grown up around peacocks because my boarding school had a lot of peacocks.
Nice.
But other than that...
Wait, did you go to Scindia?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. You lived in a goddamn palace for like formative years.
Otherwise, like, I have pretty cool. Like, I find all birds cool. Like, I love sparrows. Now, they're not cool birds, but I guess...
birds.
Yeah, but they're also like, there's so much habitat loss for sparrows that I find it so darling that they come here in the entire group. Like, some 8-9 will come and like run around the whole garden. They were designed to live with humans. So like your kitchen holes and your window, like AC holes, that's where they make their nest, right, close to humans. And that's where they're away from their predators. But buildings have started becoming more closed off. There are no nooks and corners and no places for them to have nest areas anymore. So because of that, like a lot of them aren't able to have like hatch their eggs, like have babies, or their babies are like eaten by the predator. So when they come in a group, I get really happy because it makes me feel like, okay, there is a space for them where they're able to eat. And
socialize.
Yeah. And so I really like that. I like that.
Yeah. So, I have this hobby of people watching and house watching. And I know of one friend who also has that. And there's this place in Bangalore called the Millionaire's Lane, where all of these rich people that have like these tech billionaires have like multi-million-dollar homes that they've built. And it's just really pretty. So you just walk down the streets, see those pretty houses and make stories about what the people
are doing inside.
What are the lives they're meeting?
Yeah.
Just practice the fiction and vision creation.
The Delulu
land. Yeah, same for people. Like you sit on a park bench and you observe people crossing, make up stories for their lives. I think, when you said the group of sparrows that come by, I'm like, oh my gosh, they definitely come here.
They are a family, 100%.
Oh, I was thinking more like a friend group that comes after college.
Maybe that. There are squirrels also, like they all come together.
Yeah.
As long as they're wits, and it's damn cute. Okay, like it truly is like when you're observing something, you tend to become a lot more observant. In general, I'm not an observant person, just when I'm at work. But ever since I've started like holding down and watching something behave, like those birds, right? I'll watch them and I'll keep watching them. And it has probably built that habit in me where now at work, I sit with things longer, which I wasn't like that. And yeah, maybe it is because I'm able to like be in that awe space for that longer time. And so even like at work, when I'm doing something, I'm able to like sit with things longer to see some pattern or something that I generally don't. I'm so fast. Like, I'm just like, you should have done this yesterday, kind of person. But there is something about being able to watch something grow, watch something move. And then it comes to your everyday work or everyday life.
It's actually very beautiful. Wow. That's actually very deep. I'm going to sit with it for a moment. Oh, I think. But we're going to have feeling like... I think the amount of green space in Delhi is super underrated. Like, I was at this place earlier and from the window, I saw these, like, forest of trees. Oh, thank you. Hello. Huge angles. Well, what do you think this little, what do you want me to call it? Do you have a name?
It's my Yoda.
Yoda? Okay. What do you think your little Yoda?
Turtle Yoda.
Turtle Yoda would think about in her state of Zen?
So, it's a weird meditation that sometime I do in my head on how, like, you're basically a speck, right? Like the whole earth is a speck in your universe. But you have basically no relevance whatsoever on this planet. Okay? In the story of this universe, you're nobody. You can think you're whoever the fuck you want to be. Nobody cares. Okay? Nobody cares. I feel like I meditate that a lot or now where I don't give myself enough, like I don't give myself so much importance. And it's a weird meditation where I feel that, you know how like that's Madhumaldi, that's growing the pink flower that's cauliflower.
Okay.
It's just growing. It has no purpose other than like, yeah, it has to reproduce. That's in, it's it's gene coded to do that, right? Is biologically required and designed in an environment where it will reproduce if it gets a chance. If a bird lies on it or a wind like gets the pollen into its salmon, but that's about it, right? It's just growing and it will die, and that's about it. And I feel like humans have made this whole world around themselves where we are so important in the story of our lives, and we are all like so obsessed with ourselves. We're constantly looking inwards, and thinking and riding ourselves crazy, basically, right? But a turtle is not doing that. A turtle is just getting by the day. It does not know when it's going to die. It just goes on, gets bored, hangs out with its other friend. It's just this, okay? To be is so hard in this world. Just to be, nothing more. To be is so hard in this world. Not only is the society not designed to let you be, it will look down upon you if you speak.
Yeah, and
It does not appreciate you to be, okay? You have to be something. It doesn't end at be. Okay? And we've forgotten how to be. I like to believe that this plant is just being, and this turtle is just being, and it's so content in being. And if you can't find that contentness in being, you can do anything and you will not be. As well, I meditate on that a lot. And that's why I actually got it. and we were diving in Maldives during the manta-ray season when the manta-rays come to feed.
Okay, what is Zamak?
A manta-ray is
Oh, Manta-ray. Oh. Arey, I found Mandhari ko try by bhai. Yeah, man.
so they come. So that's when like we were there and this turtle spoke to me and it's like, okay, I have to carry it because it's just so like it reminds me to be.
This gives me more Kung Fu Panda Master vibes
Oh, yeah, that one.
than the hero.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, was it Master Shifu?
Master Chief.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't very.
Seafood is, yeah. Yeah, that only. Yeah, I didn't mean you were dying.
And I'm like, dude, where is he?
Yeah.
I haven't watched Star
Yeah.
Wars, but
I mean, Yoda's green, so like,
I haven't watched stuff. So,
okay.
yeah.
This green has like 0.8 years.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, Master Shifu. That's that wise vibe about it.
Oh my god, sure. And
Yeah, so I like to meditate on this. I've been overly thinking about this. Sometimes it's a little like you get you on the wrong cycle. But I do.
why do you think?
If you think about it too much, you'll not do it. You not want to do anything.
Yeah.
Like you will get out of the social world, and that's very dangerous. Also, unfortunately, you need to know. You need to have an inner world and an outer world, right? You're not in control of the outer world, but you have to be in control of your inner world. But I'm still working and operating in an outer world. So I can't let my inner world completely turn my outer world upside down. This is my inner world. Okay.
Or the goal, at least.
Yeah. So sort of like that's how like I try to keep it inner world induced.
Yeah, I think like this to be the idea of just being and existing is like monk mentality peak.
Yeah.
And back when I was in high school, I thought I had these giant problems. And I thought that, this is like, what am I going through? Why is life so difficult? Even though I had such a comfortable life physically and, materialistically for all intents and purposes. And just like a few days ago, I was speaking to this gentleman who was like, in school, we really thought we had problems when we grew up. So, because I had a lot of free time on my hands during high school, I don't know what inside me ticked or flipped, and it just, primed me to take action to find an answer there. And that's when I came across the entire idea of how our entire existence is meaningless. So, obsessing over our problems that are so insignificant and immaterial is futile. Right?
It is.
And just by the scope,
The problem is only if you die. Obsessing about it is furthermore futile.
waste of resources and energy.
But I feel like kids are being, you know what I mean?
Kids-
Like kids have this inherently in them, where they are just
But that's only up to like 2 years.
up till they get like introduced to schools and like competition and like Sharma ji ka beta business. Or it doesn't even have to be school. If at home they're like, oh, look at that one or look at this one, or it's of somewhere being.
Cousin.
Because then it's not their being. Well, now it's disturbed.
Yeah.
But kids are being. Okay, kids in playground are just being. So you are just doing their business. No worry whatsoever.
My God. Yeah, and then, so I looked into it a little further. I had one piece of the puzzle solved, the mindset one. And the other was, understanding that if something can be done about a problem, then do it. If it can't, then it's a fact. You have to, then the only thing to do is to take away your attention from it
Yeah.
and move on. And another, I think, very, very important thing I figured out is a lot of times problems are temporary, and then they're not problems, they're just situations.
That's true. It's a hard lesson to learn also.
Yeah, and very, very surprisingly, this situation mindset came from a reel.
What?
Yeah, so I
This is
mean,
recent.
no,
This learning.
okay, so it probably wasn't a reel, but it was like a short animated clip or video, maybe a Vine from when Vine was a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, of Musically, but so rather it was reinforced by that, where this particular person was like, "Oh, I think your wife has seen you drinking or whatever," and he's like, "Man, what's the problem? This is a situation. Once you're sober, you can go back home." And this is like very, very low, those high quality videos that in low video quality, low resolution, like 144 pixels, delivering 4K lessons. This African dude somewhere in some African city preaching.
That's too funny.
So it was hilarious, but wait.
It taught you.
Yeah, it has not.
I flex it.
It reinforced that life lesson, like understanding that the temporary nature and impermanence
Of everything.
of everything. So even when like people say things and they make statements, I add like a yet to the end of their statement because it's impermanent to remind them of the impermanent nature. Even though it may not be obvious, there's like some subliminal messaging that goes in, hopefully. And
True that.
hi, we're recording. Clip this part out. I thought that this would happen, and I'm like, how are we going to deal with it? ठीक है, देखा जाए.
We could have.
It's a-
We could have just closed the door.
My friend will. No,
Yeah?
that's okay. That's okay. No, don't do it. So, okay. So yeah.
Do you have recording on?
No, out of storage, but it's been a coffee fellow. Pick up me, yeah. So coming back.
It's a pretty cool way of reminding.
Yeah.
Little Shifu. And yet.
So another good thing I learned from Instagram is instead of using language like broke, saying things like pre-wit. So
Pre-rich.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that
Yeah.
mindset, I tell you.
it may sound
Oh.
pretentious to people, but I think it's all about mindset and vibes. And
You believe in energy.
yeah, obviously, like think even physically, there's a lot of evidence. String theory at the end.
No.
At the end of the day
No.
is like 5 patients in a string, which is apparently the fundamentals in building block of everything. So yeah, think there's a lot of learning in the realm of energy to be done, and once you figure that out, I think you can control our reality, honestly. So
Oh wow. So much I don't believe in it, but okay.
no,
I like your passion about it.
yeah, man, I think that there was this one movie about this girl who had some drugs.
Middle life. Was that
Something.
no, it's Lucy.
Okay.
But it's very similar to Limitless, where like they eat a pill and like the entire brain.
Gets activated.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not true in that sense that
Sure, that may be an
Our
exaggeration.
brain does work like completely in sense. It's not like one part is active and the rest of the brain is dead. Like the brain has different parts that govern different things and the whole brain is active. Whether or not it's using to its full capacity, we don't know, because dogs have a very heightened sense of smell, right? Humans don't, right? Can you get to that level? I don't know. Question mark. We don't know. I mean, no other human has it. But humans have been able to do really weird things also that...
unexpected.
Yeah, so I mean, you never know where, like, what is the capacity of a brain for. Yeah. Look, that one also has long beak. All these tiny ones have long beaks.
Where am I?
Every time I read about, like on the bulb, now she's on the client.
Okay. Where's the dog that way?
It's more fun to watch birds when you can sort of figure out how there is evolution. Like when I see something and I can understand, okay, it has evolved like this. How cool is that? And it really like makes me feel like it's one of those light bulb moments. You know, when you read, like you're taught everything in school, right? And you know, adults complain, oh, why did we learn this? We'll never use this. And I find this so stupid because, yes, school didn't teach you where it's used or why we are learning it. What they're teaching is all factual knowledge. It actually is. Everything is. That's what you're learning. It never taught you where you can see this phenomena or where you can like observe trigonometry in life or something like that. But then I learned about evolution and how like beings have evolved into things. And now when I see things and when I look at that bird and it has that tiny ass body but a long ass beak, and I'm like, it must have gone back to how now it has this tiny. All tiny birds have somehow like longer beaks or one like family. And it's really interesting and it gets me really like excited about biology and evolution in general.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know though, like on the point of schools, I think, why do we need to bombard ourselves with so many facts?
It's done incorrectly. I feel like the intention wasn't this probably, and we had to like learn more history of how the curriculum was set. But from whatever little tidbits I have read about, is that it started off with you need to know a little bit of everything to become a wholesome human being. In sense like Guru Peaks, right? Like fully.
I'm not going to listen.
No, I'm talking about like all schools, no matter what, will teach you a little bit of everything.
Schools today have not evolved from the Gurukuls.
So it is not, but there are schools who also have similar ethos of Guru.
Sure, yeah.
Right? That the schools do exist there. But I'm saying like even in Gurukul, you are taught something of a little bit of everything.
But that had like functional and...
That's a separate point. I'm trying to... What point I'm trying to make here is the curriculum is designed in belief that, okay, the child needs to know a little bit of maths because it's required, a little bit of science because it's required, a little bit of history because that's required, a little bit of communication because that's required, and 200 other subjects because that's required, right? Unfortunately, over the years, or rather over the centuries, we have not understood what is required, what is not. It has just been. Mm-hmm. We have not changed it to the maths that is taught. Is it required? Or should it be something that they choose to do? And subjects no more have correlation. You're taught maths in a completely different, like, math class does not coincide with in your brain. That's how it is, right? And that's a problem. Because when you don't see interlinking of subjects, you can never understand the working of the world and will never get in awe of things. Like, I feel like because we miss interlinking of how you're studying cell in biology and you're studying atom in chemistry, but kids are not taught that each cell is also made out of atoms and all of that. You're not. Like, that's not. And the atoms, the principle of running those atoms is somehow taught in physics.
Yeah.
A lot of those things are not taught, but how they are running, you can mathematically calculate also.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And all of this makes this is all one single stream. Right? But it's taught in like such weird ways that nobody gets to that stream and it's all fucked up in that.
That's because the goal of school is not like as it's designed today to educate, but to make someone test
literate.
prep. It's test prep.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's to increase literacy.
Sure, yeah. like to move decimal points on some number.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of it, and in biology, cell is considered to be the smallest, and then there are organs and organelles.
Yeah.
But the amount of difference with respect to the size of an atom and an organelle is probably like megafold.
Yeah.
Right. And because, both in physics, like an atom and its forks and what all is said to be the smallest, and this is said to be the smallest, I think like subconsciously it's difficult to realize that they're not the same scale. So what you were just saying that it's not taught together made me realize that, oh damn, a cell is like probably tens of thousands of times bigger than atoms, and I can't realize I'm having this realization now. As we speak, like little late at the party. But
one of the famous lectures of Richard Feynman was also about how he goes from a number
to calculus, is that the what you thought about?
To quantum, yeah. And it takes a very, very fundamental thing, right? And he builds upon it.
Yeah.
And he's able to build upon it because he can build maths and physics together into this one thing.
Yeah.
But the school fails to do that. The school fails for you to understand the world. In wanting it for students to understand the world, it fails. It completely fails.
It does the
teaching
exact
you
opposite.
How political science is evolved from history. You're taught political science completely separate from history, right? But all of political science is designed because of history, of how history took shape. Had it not been for Alexander or Hitler or Falmana to die or to create those chaos, none of these political science things would even exist. For Karl Marx, all of it goes back to that, but it's not linked like that, right? Mm-hmm. And the things that are tested on is what year this happened and what that person did, and it's just so fast. I had a hard time remembering things because I could never. Today I can't remember my friends' birthdays or my own important days. Because that I just don't register dates. Okay, so a hard time doing well on exams that ask me dates. If today you ask me in a conversation oh, what are those numbers? I wouldn't, because I don't register information like that.
You tell me what is more useful, understanding why the battle happened and how you could prevent it, or just remembering which battlefield in which you were.
You will not believe, because I make books for exams. Mm-hmm. There is a question that came in the NEET exam back in the day, 2000s. Where was Mendeleev born? Why does it matter where he was gone? How does it matter? Born in Austria, or if he was born in Australia? It does not matter, no? But it was an exam for a medical examination. It was a question on medical exam. That's just that's what you're fighting for. What?
I'll tell you. You know those classmate notebooks that had trivia in the back?
Yeah.
The kids would enjoy those trivia and remember it. Yeah. So like a brownie point for them, and then it is.
That trivia was still cool. I thought that would make so much more sense to, oh my god, animals are like this, or wow, the earth can have this, or something like that, right? I still geek out on a lot of trivia, especially about animals and plants. I think it's really
evident
that things oh, this happens and that happens. It's pretty cool. It's like a hidden life that I did not know about, and it's a portal into their world. Did you know facts? Are a portal into their world, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, man, that was quite a core memory, honestly. Reading those fun facts, and then going and telling like 20 people, and then 10 people saying like, oh damn, wow. And yeah.
The only reason I know a blue whale is the size of like 10 school buses is because I read it on back of their classmate notebook. There is no reason for me to know this.
Yeah. And
Other than that, and it has not left me. Even when I dived with the blue whale, if I had to explain it to someone, I would just say, it was like, is it that big, you know? Like, municipal school buses, bro.
oh god. Oh wow. God knows classmate has used which bus or mesh.
I found the coolest thing on this is completely unrelated, but like how is it related to the natural world, and how like these things when you see in the world, you're just like, wow. So on one of the reels on Instagram, there's a seed called Ratti.
Okay.
So Ratti,
There's a seed called Ratti.
the name of the seed is Ratti. Okay, Ratti.
Okay.
So Ratti in the olden days used to be a way against gold. If you have to weigh gold, you would use the seed Ratti
Okay.
to weigh it, because the size of the seed the weight of the seed would never change.
Okay.
It was very like
Stable.
yeah. So they would use that, and you know when we say Ratti bhar bhi akal nahi hai, it would mean like wrong Ratti.
damn.
Like because there was this one tiny thing that was not like very small. And when that person said that, it blew my mind because I was like, oh my god,
I know
that's the
every
etymology
point.
of it is. And I geek out on those things so much because suddenly like the world makes a little more sense to you.
Yeah.
Words with a little more sense of where they come from and why they are used. And I think that's what the school should or were trying to do probably, or like failed at it completely. But I feel like if you can, if the school could have put all these subjects or all these English things, or rather Hindi or muhavras, everything together in a way that it operated their world view of how the world is, it'd be so mind blowing. Like every class would be like, whoa, what, whoa.
Yeah.
But it's not like
that honestly, Tanya, that's the goal. Like the school I want to run would be like there wouldn't be subjects. There'd just be like days and learnings that like you can go and bifurcate with subject you learned in your own time, but like absolutely makes no sense to teach in silos and then teach it to connect if you can just teach as a very comprehensive thing, right? And honestly, what this entire anecdote of Ratti just shows how thinking is unlocked. And you know, it's funny how you said that school, you know, prepares you to become like a factory worker, because I don't know, do you know the story of how the entire system came into view? So like John Dee and everything. So it is like crazy when I found out about how this one particular person who needed people in his oil fields just went and built an entire army of workers. And I'm like, like, person is long gone, but his system.
long gone. And the system is so, replicable
Yeah.
that it has taken over the entire world's understanding of teaching.
Yeah. And in between, like over the past few years, some people found a way to make it into cookie cutters or democratize it, reproduce it, and like made a business out of it, right? Which is that there's so much private equity money flowing into education, which is or should have been non-profit. But yeah, think like future is super grim if there is, because unfortunately the lack of ethics and concern and meaning to private equity, apart from the IRR return, whatever they touch turns to dust. Like,
What is this? The reverse of Midas.
I mean, their Midas touch is such that it sucks the value out of the gold, leaves it as sand, and that value is transferred to their shareholder. But yeah, I mean, You know, I was just watching this video by CNBC about how all of these legacy American institutions are now going out of business because being stripped for parts. Like these companies like Red Lobster and Olive Garden, which are at the foundation of so many stories of Americans, are now being stripped for parts, burdened with debt, and then sold off and transformed, effectively killing the brand and the thousands of stories that it carries. And I'm like, this is on an industrial scale, the death of the soul of the entire history, right? And same thing's already happened in London, where entire streets of stores that were one mom and pop were now then owned by private equity and given out to these soulless institutions that are like fashion houses and God knows what. But, I mean, it doesn't stop me from wanting to do private equity because it's so much fun. But I just hope that if I ever do it, I'm not nuts to completely dismantle things.
I mean, there is order in the world, like as when and how things will evolve. It comes in waves, right? It's a matter of like some more decades and things will look something else. And I think that's a never-ending sort of cycle in our world. And if history is to teach anything, it's that. It's constantly like, if you think this is the end of it, like, wait a few more years. That's the end of that. As something else has taken over. And yeah. At least that's how I look at the world now. Like, somebody will always replace something. And you just have to give it time.
It reminds me of the lyric that goes, it comes and goes in super powers.
Haven't heard this song. But I read it somewhere. I think I can't recall where I read it.
I'm not doing a good job singing it, so I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I heard it was very popular.
Yeah,
I don't remember the name of the song right now, but
sounds like a blues song.
I think it was. Oh my gosh. I had this phase where I thought listening to sad songs made me, process my pain and like just get it out of my system.
Maybe there is some weird psychological connection there. It's not you alone,
See, it
like
works.
all people who are sad listen to like blues song and they feel like
because the vibe matches.
There is some psychological studies there.
Or maybe there's something to do with energy, same wavelength.
Yeah, call it whatever. Science is energy on spec. To someone who's studying string theory, it's that. Or like all light and sound is all like that, right? It's all waves.
Yeah, it's always. Well, and all these talking about waves is making me miss the waves crashing on the beach. Like, I'm so glad that because of my recency bias, like on call I can hear the waves crashing, but every so often the sound starts to fade. I know it's time to make a trip. God knows I might be by the ocean next month. Let's see shit.
Yeah.
You might be by the
100%.
fingers crossed. Oh gosh. Snow off. Yeah. Should be that?
Yeah. Yeah, listen.
Let's find like a note wrapper.
There was an interview of a person who was talking about how like he was an Indian surfer and how people in India like have such a big coastline, but like there are barely any Indian surfers in like his surf scene in the world. And he said that, like every other country, it's part of their lifestyle. It's part of their life. Go out on this lake.
It's a part of the personality.
Yeah, like that's how they, like, gully cricket is part of our lives. Everybody at some point has randomly played cricket. No ground, no matter. Right? It's kuch bhi wicket bana diya, kuch bhi boundary bana diya. That's how they've played. And everybody has played it in their lifetime. Maybe not kids in this generation, but like, I don't know about your generation because you're a decade away now. But almost everybody I know of has played a make-believe cricket stadium, cricket gully.
Please, I was not born into smartphones.
But the same thing is with surfing across the rest of the world, where people just like, it's a part of their life. They go take a board and go surf. Right? They learn surf on the go. And in India, that's not the case, even though there is a coastline, and sadly, all big cities, barring Chennai, have all evolved like outside of in the mainland and sea land.
Yeah, honestly, Chennai is not in the top 4, so is it really
That's true.
like?
Chennai has a pretty big mark in terms of metro cities, no?
See, it's in the top 10, no doubt, but like, I don't think it grew at the pace. Like, at one point was way more significant than it is now.
That's a political statement. I'm just kidding. I haven't been, I've been to Chennai like 3 times at best. And I have no opinions of it, excepting that the fact it's extremely humid and I hate it. I can't possibly live in Chennai because it's so humid. It's ridiculous.
I'm trying to recall if other coastal towns are as humid as Chennai.
Yeah, Kochi just...
No, I mean like outside India where surfing is like a thing.
Why not humid?
Isn't it? I thought it was.
All coastal towns will be. I mean, Mumbai is humid.
Yeah. No, but like, say Sydney or...
Oh, they're not. But you're also like different hemispheres. You can't compare.
So basically it's because we're in the tropical range.
Of course. It's hotter, so it's humid. It's hot flashes. There, it's not hot in... It is hot in Sydney, but it's not like humid hot in Sydney, right? It's hot enough to cause a wildfire, but it's not it's not hot and sticky. It's hot and windy.
Yeah. Okay. So to that, do you want to talk about the necklace?
Really?
I don't know. Maybe.
Do you want to ask me a question?
Okay. Why kite surfing? Okay.
Oh, that I have a question. So cool story. Back in 2015, right? So one of my favorite people is Richard Branson.
Okay.
I just love how he embodies this, like, what his approach to life is. And he embodies this whole adventure spirit in his life.
Okay.
He runs a cool company. The company does many things. But he as a person has a lot more character in the things and how he approaches things, right? Mm-hmm. He, back in 2012, he and his son decided they're going to break 3 world records.
Damn.
How? By kite surfing the English Channel.
Okay.
So to get 3 records, the fastest that his son will break, the oldest that he will break, and as a group being the fastest. Okay. Kite surfing is one of his favorite sports.
Okay.
He's been quite vocal about making it an Olympic sport. He got Barack Obama to also kite surf in his island. So now anyway. So all of them decided, okay, they're going to kite surf this English Channel. The France government declared this as an illegal attempt. But what are they going to do, right? He's like Sir Richard Branson. He can't do anything. So they went anyways. And the English Channel is about 23-25 miles long. Okay. His son did actually complete it in 2 hours, 20 minutes or something.
Okay.
And it's open water, so it's quite choppy to kite surf. It's not so easy. kitesurfing is a lot like you learn it in flat lagoons where the constant like big waves are not crashing on you. So this guy started and he failed multiple times. So he paused and then he was like, okay, let me come again another day. It took me 110 tries, but he did. And he landed on that front beach and the police was there to take him in. But obviously nothing happened and he still holds the record of the oldest person to cross English Channel. And just that story was so wild. I thought I have got to do kitesurfing
This
in
is
some
so
way.
on brand for something that you would write into your life if you could.
But that's all. So he does really reckless adventures. Okay. Will risk his life. He would write a letter to his son and daughter saying, if I die, says, I love you. And I don't know why, but I have this weird bug in me that I like doing that. Right? Even back when and it has happened a lot of times. I've gotten my husband to do a lot of things or my friends to do a lot of things. One of these days we were in Sri Lanka and randomly we were on a boat and we spotted a whale.
Okay.
So we told the boat guy, "Would chalo whale ke paas chalte hain." So he went towards the whale. We were way far away from the mainland, okay? And he said, "We'll dekhne hai." I said, "Yes, we'll dekhne hai." There were two other friends. They did not think this was a wise idea. He said, मैं बहुत तेजी से चलाऊंगा फिर मैं जब बोलूंगा jump तो jump कर जा. I said, बहुत तेजी से लेके गया और हम लाइट जा रहे थे. So बोला jump. I jumped. There was nothing. It was just black. When you look down, you would feel a shark would come to fucking eat you because it was bottomless, right? And this part, the pier was this close to me. I screamed so loudly, no voice, my voice would not come out, right? And before jumping, I was like, listen, just tell my parents I love them, okay? And I jumped in the water. And I must have done this so many times in life. And I'm just like, listen, tell them I lost, okay? And I'll just go on doing my tomfoolery. And I really like that about it. And that's why kite surfing, because I really think that is a cool sport and I've got to do it. But also because I feel like I need to do all these things in the world that are wild and ridiculous. And that's my scene.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. I don't, maybe my boundary of fear is not very high. For a lot of people, it's like they're scared of heights. I don't get scared of heights. I think it's fun to be on ridiculous roller coasters. It's fun to throw up on roller coaster.
Have you thrown up a roller coaster?
No, thankfully.
Same.
But my brother has thrown up on me on a roller coaster. But I enjoy living on the edge in a weird way. I feel like my life is too not crazy enough. So I go on in search of crazy shit to feel like, oh, I might die. There is something there. And I'm most generally curious about a lot of adventure out there in the world. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's why kite surfing. And why reckless? Because I have deep love for adventure. Deep love. That. But also really deeply miss being intellectually stimulated. For instance, we were having a conversation about Rati. Or a conversation about evolution or, things like that. And I think over the years, we've sort of eliminated social spaces where dialogue can exist. Not for a purpose. Not for you to grow your business. Not for you to grow or get more followers or whatever. But just to have a conversation to learn more about how the world operates. Like how probably Greeks used to talk in their free time. Right? Because there's always an agenda, I think conversations have lost their charm. And I miss that space where you could talk about deeper things. And when you were young, you didn't know how things work. But now you know more about the world, right? And you can learn more about the world and you can make more sense of the world. And everything that you learn is so passive now because you learn by yourself. You're either reading something, watching something, listening to something, and then you don't have spaces to discuss those some things. And so therefore, I thought that, okay, why don't I marry these two worlds where you go and do crazy things, which we love, and the way that we can see the world and experience the world, but also like have this pocket where you can have these conversations that have no agenda as such, but are so fucking fascinating that it blows your mind. And you're like, holy shit, I never knew it worked like that. Right? And so, yeah, that's the intention of that. It's very selfish in nature, but what isn't?
Yeah, I think.
So, yeah, that's the idea behind why kite surfing and why Hercules.
And you know that Bradson placed the bid for Necker as a joke, and then he actually got it for like 10% of asking or something like that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, and it's so on brand for him. I think there was a dare or something.
Oh my god, if you go and Google Richard Branson kite surfing, you'll be amazed at what you find. Do it.
Okay. Do you know how he started Virgin Atlantic? Okay, what am I looking for?
Unless there is. This was not even the worst. There is really a naked chick.
Is he not married?
No, this so. So I was telling this story to somebody, and then somebody judged me so hard because of this. And then I was like, oh no, why have I not seen this picture before? It so happens that he was kite surfing at a beach once, right? And this model came up to him with a boyfriend and saying, do you mind if I hang on to you when you kite surf? It's like, sure, because he's the sir also, like very nightly.
Okay.
Then she was like, do you mind if I'm naked? And then he was like, okay. And his wife was also there. Right? So the wife is just standing there and this naked chick is hanging on to Richard. And they're kites surfing. And this photo is everywhere on the internet now.
What is wrong with all this? How's the vibe okay with this?
It's nuts. But like, I'm sure they've done wackier stuff.
Yeah,
Yes, so
all these rich people have these secret lives we don't know.
yeah, but it's crazy. But I think like kite surfing is pretty cool. I've always
Have you not done that?
no,
Oh,
I have not. I'm going to learn. It's going to be crazy.
you need upper body strength to do kasepe.
You do need some amount of strength. It's like surfing where you have to push the board to get up. But you don't need so much strength. You don't need to be ripped to do it. Like people who are just fair bit of strength will do it. You need to be able to balance. So the whole of kite surfing is dependent on how you move your body weight, right? On the board. And that is the bit to it.
Yeah, I'm bad at both.
But you'll never learn if you don't try. You know what I mean?
I mean, I should train for it, but
You shouldn't. You should do it, and that's your training. I'm always saying this is my funda. Okay, this is my take. I think people spend too much time training on something. I don't think so. If I wanna, sometimes I think about, oh, let's go on a trek. You don't have to go to the hardest. You don't have to do the highest level of kite surfing. You just have to do it, right? Unless you do it, you will never know. And if you spend time training, you will never get to do it. Because you will never feel like you're enough. And the more you train, you'll just be like, okay, now I must do at least at that level. And that never happens. And so that's also why I decided to do it Reckless, was because I was doing a lot of community back when I just came back from the States, right? With Beach House, Lone Ranch. And when I came back to like building the family business, I missed that entire time. And I missed building with people. I missed a community. Mm-hmm. And I felt like one day, all my conversation had become, oh, when I did this when that happened.
Oh my god.
And I hated that, right?
So hard.
Yeah.
Frustration.
And I was like, okay, I have to stop that. I need to change that. And that change is not going to come at some point. That change is going to happen now when I want it. And if I want it now, it has to come now. And so, okay, fine. Because I already decided I'm going to go right. So I was like, let me get this together now. And yeah, it's off. I'm really excited about it. It's one of the best, most economical places on planet. It truly
I'm sure.
is. It truly is. And I decided I'll go to like Portugal, which is one of the best places to do kitesurfing.
Yeah, I'm sure that costs enough.
Oh my god, my feed on Instagram, if you see, it would be like, whoa, so cool. It's gets me so hyped up for wanting to do it.
My feet. So I have like 2 different feeds. One is like brain rot. Where
My god, I don't have any brain rot feet. I hate it. I very religiously clean my feet. But go,
yeah.
but the other feet.
So the other feed is like, the vibe is you sitting in a very warm and cozy library, just consuming information. So that is my clean feed, where I just like do not interested religiously to all irrelevant posts to me. And that the idea behind that feed is to just get like the best thoughts and mindsets, and like all of the thought leaders. Clips from their speeches and podcasts.
So next, who's your favorite thought leader when it comes to like education?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's no one specific right now that stands out.
Okay.
There's one channel called Future of Education that I think is nice. There's one school, the content around this place called Alpha School in the US.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty very cool man.
Yeah, like they're doing things right. And
I mean, they're doing things right for the system, as per the system also. Like, they're showing results as per what the system also desires. Like, you want the best, like students are ranking the best and go to the best college, and they're getting to that. And their system is designed where you only study for 2 hours, and there's an AI tutor, and it's pretty interesting. I find it good. One of my favorite schools is like Green School. It's in Bali.
okay.
And it's completely like designed around everything is sustainable about that school.
Okay.
Literally, the building is made out of the bus grounds are biofuel. The school projects, everything around it is around renewable and sustainable. Like, we have to just see how beautiful that school is. It's fantastic. And the other school is Luminar, which is in Brazil, which a telecom person who's like super duper rich started. And that school is, oh my god, if you study the curriculum, you would be like, why the fuck haven't we made the school like a benchmark for all schools? It's that beautiful, where they have like a person plays drums, comes and teaches maths. Okay? Because he understands. Because briefs require math. So there are no teachers, only experts.
And instructors.
And guides. And all these experts come and teach. And it's not required that you're expert in that particular subject. But whatever you work on requires that subject. And so you go and teach. And they also have a whole stream which is for life. So like, how do you grieve? How do you be a friend? How do you love her? It's so beautiful. It's a knowledge. Yeah. It's so beautiful. Oh my god. So yeah. And another one is like Think School, which is really cool. So this photographer in Australia had kids and wanted to send her kids to school, but did not know like what school to send because all schools were tiny. So she started a school where each semester the students stay in one country. So one semester they stay in India.
Yeah.
All their subjects will be as per like how India is related to those subjects, and then the next semester they'll be in China, and then the next one they'll be in Brazil, then the next one they'll be in Costa Rica, and the whole fucking like 3-4 years, you'll just be traveling from one country to the other and learning all subjects, but like in a worldly way. It's so exposed to the world. It's crazy how much like information you can connect in your brain, because now if you go on to solve a problem, you'll be able to see, oh, if in Brazil they solve for this way, maybe it can be replicated in India this way. Or okay, this is how the water pipeline is designed in the hilly areas in Northeast. Maybe this can be replicated in some other space. You know, that knowledge cannot be taught. It can only be experienced and seen, and there is no substitute for that. And that's so beautiful. I really adore that. And there are a couple of like more schools that are really like fascinating in the way they teach. But these three are my favorite ever.
Interesting. Fun. Also,